Good evening, Winterview, back again with another brief dialogue, driving home from work. For my dear friend, Anastasia, almost forgot to mention her. This brief dialogue, by special request. Winterview not firing on all cylinders today, mentally slow and dull, tired and not think can. So, this dialogue, fittingly, is on, well, it's kind of a mind hack, a little bit of a hint for people who get a bit anxious, want to learn a bit more about the mind. I think the mind's important to look at. There's no answers in there, in the mind, nothing at all, really. It's a bit empty, but it's quite a devil at times. Fools us very easily into believing stuff. So that's why I talk about it a fair bit. So people get familiar with the mind and how it operates, its little tricks, and so forth. So, this one goes out to people who get a bit muddled in their own thoughts and get a bit anxious and a bit nervous. It's about the limits of knowledge, the limits of your own knowledge, where to stand, where to take a stand with your own knowledge. And it works a little bit like this. When you give an opinion, we often differentiate opinion from fact. But we rarely pause to think about, do we know the difference between opinion and fact? In previous brief dialogues, I defined a fact as such. A fact is a truism, you might say, within a framework. The framework must be there a priori for a fact to be a fact. So, for example, I set up a scale of measuring water, and on my scale I've got these numbers that go from 1 to 19, let's just say, and I declare, why not, that at number 15 water boils, and sure enough on my scale every time it hits 15 water boils. So the fact is that on the Winterview scale of water it boils at 15. That's a fact. Now, is it true? Well, I made up that scale myself. Why did I make it up? I don't know. I have no idea. Just came out of the back of my unconscious. So we have to be a bit cautious when we declare these facts, paying heed to the structures that exist a priori to the fact. And we can look at the world and we can pretty much examine it in the same way, looking at the contexts and the structures that support so-called facts, and very quickly we realize that our so-called facts are not necessarily what we might call true, or truth, even better. So at all times when we claim facts, we might fare well to give a little nod to the arbitrariness of these facts, the so-called made-upness, which is a word I just made up to illustrate the made-upness of that concept. And then we have, going back to opinions, things we just reckon. I just reckon, why not? But what's an opinion? Opinion doesn't just come out of thin air, seemingly. It comes out of a broad history of experience and understanding, perception, to a point in time where you're called upon to deliver your opinion. Now, you could be an expert. Let's say you're an expert in what's a good one? Let's say you're an expert in sales. You know how to sell stuff. You've been doing it for 40 years and you're really good at it. You've never had any university or academic training in it. You just know how to do it. You know how to sell stuff. So you might get called into a company, a business, as a consultant, and they might say to you, "O sales guru, who selleth loads of stuff that people do not need." Please tell us the secrets, or tell us what we're doing wrong. So the sales guru comes in and has a look and goes, okay, this is my opinion. What you're doing is this, and you need to stop that and do this. Bam. Now, is that a fact? No, it's his opinion. But it's based on a broad historical context of knowledge. He cannot, or she cannot know more in that instant than they know from their history. They have to draw a line in the sand in their knowledge and say, this is it. This is what I believe. If you do not draw a line in the sand and declare what you believe, you'll end up being very wishy-washy all the time. You'll give caveats endlessly, like, well, maybe, seems to be, appears to be, apparently, in my opinion, but I could be wrong, forever. And if you do that, you'll be anxious, and people will not take you seriously when you're talking to people. And this is a dialogue about being confident. That's all. It's a bit of a mind hack. So, lesson 1 is draw a line in the sand when you're giving your opinion. Your opinion is no better than a fact. A fact and an opinion come out of the same historical base of knowledge in some ways. The opinion might not have a strong framework or context, but at least it comes out of some historical understanding. To this point in time, right now, this is what I believe. Bam! There's no point explaining why you believe in your opinions, because you could be explaining infinitely. There's hundreds or thousands and maybe millions of reasons why you might believe something, and contextual factors to be considered, and historical antecedents, and so on and so forth, endlessly. No point. Just declare it. This is what I believe. Bam! Someone might believe something totally different. They might declare a fact or an opinion that seems out of step or out of sync with yours. That doesn't matter. It's not actually in contradiction. People believe that they're often fighting against other people's opinions. But opinions exist along with facts side by side, shoulder to shoulder. There's just a whole range of them. They're not in opposition. Opposition is a way of framing in the mind a kind of duality, a right versus a wrong. If one of us is right, the other must be wrong, and vice versa. That's a belief system about opinions. We don't need that belief system. So you could be in a business meeting. Let's get practical here. And the manager looks across and says, Nancy, what do you reckon? Nancy is new to the company. Nancy hasn't been here very long. Nancy doesn't really know the ins and outs of the business. Nancy's an intern, maybe. And Nancy's quivering. But then Nancy remembers what Winterview said. Winterview said, draw a line in the sand and declare your opinion as it appears right now. And it will exist as a true representation of your knowledge to date. My opinion is that we need to dump this range of stock because I think it doesn't sell very well and we need to go forward with something else. Bam. Very good. Do you have any reason for that opinion? Nope. Okay, very good. Next. So you don't have to justify and argue and convince, because the arguments and the reasons are infinite. Really, have a think about it. Think about how many reasons that you can come up with for why you think you know something. Draw a line in the sand and declare it. If someone wants to challenge your opinion, they're not understanding that your opinion exists independently of their opinion and not in opposition to it. It's not in opposition to it, even if it seems like it's in opposition to it. Someone could declare, I believe that the answer to that question is the colour black. And you could declare, I believe the answer is the colour white. Well, it seems, according to the mind, that that is opposition. White opposes black. But no, white and black exist as separate opinions. The anxious person fails to see a few things in this scenario. The first thing the anxious person fails to see often is that they often believe in there's some absolute universal truth that they don't know, and because they don't know it, they can't speak up. And they somehow believe that other people must know it, or must at least have tapped into it in order to give their answer. It's not true. The other thing that the anxious person does is that they endlessly justify and give caveats and sort of, well, and water down their answer with maybes and, never knows and I don't know and da-da-da. The intelligent person in the room knows that every opinion can have a zillion caveats about, well, seems to be, maybe, apparently, da-da-da, and all that. But that's no good for the anxious person. They just have to draw a line in the sand and declare it. The other thing the anxious person tries to do in their mind is they try and go back infinitely into their own basis of their knowledge and present it all in one giant essay answer. Well, based on my study of the ancient tribe of blah, and based on the research and blah, 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 and on and on and on, just don't worry about all that. It's fine, because someone else sitting in the room has a different basis for their knowledge. Someone could have a basis of academic study. Someone might have a basis of experience. Someone might have no basis. But they'll all end up declaring an opinion, or even a fact. And remembering that the fact is bound by context, and therefore stands shoulder to shoulder with opinions. Very contentious brief dialogue, I think, might ruffle a few minds out there. Might get some minds upset about, no, there is a truth, there are facts, there is reality out there. I can assure you, there is none. You'll have to take Winterview's word on that, or look into it for yourself. Look into this thing you call reality that you dearly hope exists, and see if you can find such a place or such an entity. I'd be very curious if you can. So coming back to the plight of the anxious person makes those, we'll call them cognitive errors or errors of mind, errors of thought, where they don't need to declare. They might find themselves in an argument with someone who opposes their views, but now that they've heard this brief dialogue, they can relax and realize, wow, that person actually doesn't understand that opinions aren't in opposition. They think opinions are singular, and there's one that is true and all the others are false. Wow, I can relax now. I can relax and let that person argue. I disagree, that person might yell, because in my opinion or my experience, the facts are blah. Okay, you say? Great, very good. Fine, in fact. I expect you to have your opinion and your facts. I would hate for you to copy me just because you can't think of anything yourself. That would be worse, perhaps. So there we go. And now we end up with a very strange harmony between people when they understand that the opinions and facts stand shoulder to shoulder. And the anxious person can feel a bit of a sigh of relief, hopefully, that, wow, all knowledge is contextual, or all knowledge is the sum total of the basis of one's historical gathering of and understanding and perception synthesized into a single declarative statement presently, and that might metamorphose as we go forward in time. We might look at our own opinions yesterday and go, that's what I believed yesterday. Now I believe something else. Can we do that? Can we tolerate that? I hope for the anxious person's sake who might be listening to this dialogue right now, they take some comfort from this in some ways and relax a bit too. A bit of relaxation. A bit of, I thought I wasn't getting life, but now I realize there's nothing to get. I realize that I used to think I was a bit dumb or a bit insecure about my own knowledge or understanding, but now you know what? It's okay. It's actually okay. What I know is fine. What I know is fine. It's It's what I believe based on my understanding and my experience right now. And it makes meetings go a lot more smoothly, I can assure you, when this is seen clearly. No more oppositional chomping the bit, so on and so forth. Anywho, it was just a little brief stroll down the dark corners of the mind once again for your listening pleasure. Thank you for listening, as usual. Comments are welcome.